I often feel that my role as a Christian YouTuber gives me a front row seat to the way Christians treat each other online. And what I found is, and I think you've probably found this too, that we Christians can often be the meanest, rudest, most hypocritical people, especially to one another, but to anybody who really opposes the things or doesn't believe in the things that we believe in. The quote from the beginning of this video comes from Mahatma Gandhi, and the story goes like this. He was reading the Gospels and he was intrigued by the life of Christ, so he decided to visit a Christian church. But upon entering the church, the ushers turned him away because he wasn't white and he wasn't upper class. And upon that action, he denounced the Christian religion. So what does the Bible actually teach us about how to live? Well, here's an excerpt from the Sermon on the Mount. These are the words of Jesus. He says this: "You have heard that the law says, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. For he gives his sunlight to both the evil and the good, and he sends his rain on the just and the unjust alike. If you love only those who love you, what reward is there in that?" Other passages in the Bible teach us that we're supposed to show kindness, goodness, and mercy to people who are socially opposed to us. Think about the story of the Good Samaritan. Think also about the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus said, what happens when somebody strikes your face? You're supposed to turn the other cheek. To me, this tells us that we're to be responding with grace and kindness and mercy, even in the face of social injustice, even when people are trying to take advantage of us, even when we're confronted by people who may even hate us. The response that we're supposed to have above anything else is love. But if you look at what happens, especially online, and I make this video because I see lots of YouTube comments, I see on Facebook the way people treat each other. If you look up an article or a post that has anything to do with American politics, for example, especially in our current political climate, anything to do with issues like abortion, gun rights, gay rights, how about immigration, for example? If you look at the responses from people who identify themselves as Christian, you're going to see people slinging mud all over each other. You're going to see people who say things that are characterized by hatred, by contempt. If I would want to just take one word to describe what I see from Christians online, the word is hypocrisy. But we live in a culture that hates hypocrisy. We live in a culture that's looking for answers. If you look at data, I think this is everywhere, but especially in America, if you look at data, people are searching for answers, especially about spiritual things, more than they ever have, yet they are less and less Christian. And I think that that has something to do with the fact that we don't portray Christ the way that we should, especially online where people see the way that we interact with each other. Now, I don't think that the majority of Christians out there are hypocrites. I don't think the majority of Christians are filled with hate, filled with contempt. I think the majority of us, at least I hope the majority of us, try to live our lives the best we can, the way the Bible teaches us. What I do think is there are probably a small segment of people who think and act this way, that do so with the loudest voices. And it can cause people who are looking at us from the outside to sort of think we're all this way. But I would be lying to you if I never told you that I wrote a comment in the heat of the moment that was spiteful in response to something somebody said on a YouTube video. I'd be lying to you if I told you that I never say things or never act in a way that has anything to do with hatred, that I'm just full of love all the time. That's not the truth. So here's what I think the point is of this whole thing. I think when we say things and do things in sort of the heat of the moment, it's because, and we do things that are un-Christian, un-Christ-like, it's because these are issues that we're passionate about. These are the things that we believe in. And we're so passionate about it that it can cause things and feelings and emotions to rise up. It can cause us to do things that we would later regret. So here's what I try to do. Sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't, but this is what I try to do. I try and give it at least 24 hours. If somebody does something or says something, or if I read something that really just stirs me up and I want to say something about it, I try and give it some time. And I found that if I can sleep on it, I can come back, and if I decide to respond at all, my response is far more in line with what I would hope to say down the line versus saying something in the heat of the moment and maybe regretting it later. I also want to say, if you take issue with something that another Christian, another believer has said or done, rather than call somebody out or do something publicly, let's follow the guidelines that are set out for us in Matthew 18 to approach somebody privately. And if you take issue with something that I have said or something that I have uploaded here on YouTube, I encourage you, just send me an email. It's brian@worshiptutorials.com. Send me an email and let's have a dialogue about it rather than slinging some mud on each other in the comments. I would encourage you to do that with anybody that you run across, especially a fellow believer. The Bible teaches us very clearly how we are to deal with those situations. So that's what I would say to you. If you read something, if you see something, somebody posts something, somebody uploads something that sort of causes anger to rise up in your soul and your spirit, that causes passion to rise up in you, and you want to just say something about it, give it some time. Think about, what did Jesus say about how we are to respond in moments like this? Because I'm telling you, the world is watching the way you and I act, the way you and I react. And the world makes judgments on Jesus, on our churches, on our faith, based on the way we act. And unfortunately, based on the way we act online, because that's what's most visible to most people. Think about the words of Jesus. Think about the teachings of Christ. Think about what we are to ultimately be categorized by, what we are to ultimately be known for as followers of Jesus. We are to be known for love, for grace, for mercy, for the fruits of the Spirit.
Matundi tehebun le'erekum watisnon le'erekum wa ana amerlukum tehebun le'erekum titalon le'rada fekum kaveldi hen tehebun ahavin lukum matabdina